What's up guys, SYED here. Welcome to Psychology of Spirituality. I'm going to be going through a lecture that I did this year in Baltimore at the National Association of School Psychology Conference on intervention research. So one of the things that we do at our lab, at the Yoga and Mindfulness lab, is try to understand what specific mechanisms of mindfulness work. This is really important in research and consequently in mental health and in interventions, right? What works? I'll give you guys an example. When I was a kid, DARE was really popular, the program DARE. They used to come to our schools, they used to educate, not using drugs. They used to have mascots come, police officers come talk to us. I mean, this was a nationally syndicated, multi-million-dollar program designed to influence kids not to use drugs. Research actually showed that the program was not effective, right? So this multi-million-dollar program really wasn't having the desired effect, right? So intervention research tries to understand the specific mechanisms that are causing change and what other mechanisms may also be causing change. So we'll be going through this video and I'll be pausing from time to time just to expand on each component.
Everyone's doing well? Thank you guys so much. So if we're looking at an intervention like it's a bubbling hot cauldron of gumbo, let's say from the south, these are the different ingredients that we want to put in to make sure that the intervention is right. So the first critical step is acceptability. To put it bluntly, if our treatment population doesn't see an intervention being of relevance to them, then that may be a critical ingredient, and maybe a critical reason why it's not working, right? So low dropout rate, enrollment, attendance, and long-term adoption of practices are correlated with high acceptability. This is a very critical part of assessing for interventions, because lots of the times the population just receives mindfulness. I know I work in schools, and we're not really sure whether they're ready to change. We're not really sure whether they're accepting intervention. So these are the different items that we use to help us understand the social validity of our intervention. And self-reports are a very easy way for interventionists and for other practitioners to understand whether the intervention that they're using is having any sort of acceptability effect.
So one of the key ingredients of intervention research is buy-in, right? If you're a new CEO and you really want to radically change things up, the first thing you need to do is understand what the buy-in is from the shareholders of your company, right? Because if you go in and start guns blazing, changing things left and right, and you're on your own, you have people who are not ready to change, then chances are, no matter how high your aspirations are, you're going to fail, right? So assessing buy-in from the people who are getting the intervention is really important. So acceptability is one way to understand that, right?
And here's our friend Mr. Time running away. If only we all had a little bit more time. So these are the different key components of acceptability that you want to understand before you develop an intervention. So time commitment. How much commitment are we asking for from our treatment population? Our first pilot study, we were asking for 45 minutes online twice a week. Right, so we're trying to understand whether that's enough, whether that's something that's logistical and practical for them. The goal of treatment, as Gould spoke about, mindfulness is effective for college student. We were looking at retention, we were looking at GPA, we were looking at well-being, and we were looking at mental health. So those were our critical components that we wanted to affect. Perceived effectiveness, Gould spoke about the mindfulness and the spirituality. So that's one unique component of our Mindful Ambassador program, is that most programs have just mindfulness on its own. Well, many people, especially many people of color, many people from minority backgrounds, approach mindfulness with a spiritual background. So we had a mindfulness and we had a mindfulness and spirituality component, and we compared the two. And that also goes into the cultural sensitivity piece. So you want to understand the demographics and the population base that you're working with, right? Because we're in Texas, because we're in Houston, we're in the most diverse campus in all of America, also the University of Houston. We wanted to placate those culturally salient variables into our intervention. So those are really, really key ingredients that you want to do when you're developing an intervention.
So a couple of things that I went through in that time frame. I really want to focus on the spirituality and mindfulness piece. Mindfulness and the way that it's adopted in schools, because of the First Amendment, because of this complete schism of secularism on one end and religion on one end, mindfulness is taught almost in an entirely secular manner. The research that we have collected at the University of Houston, we found that students, and by and large minority students, inherently view mindfulness as a spiritual endeavor. So we had a mindfulness condition and we had a mindfulness and spiritual condition. In the mindfulness and spiritual condition, we use spiritual language, call upon a higher power, connect to something larger than yourself. If you believe in God, if you believe in the universe, if you believe in nature, use this meditation as a way to connect to that. The mindfulness only condition didn't have that. What we found is students rated both conditions, whether it had spiritual language or not, the same. They were both seen as being spiritual. That's a really important consideration, right? And it's unique because most mindfulness curriculums and the way that it's taught is without a spiritual angle or without any sort of spiritual language. Spirituality is a very, very highly salient factor for producing pro-social behaviors, increased mental health, life satisfaction. I've taught about it at length. Here's some videos. So this has some really important implications, especially in non-mainstream communities.
Feasibility. So our first pilot study went ahead 2 years ago. We had high acceptability. The participants really, really liked the intervention. But as you can see from the amount of people who signed up to the amount of people who completed it, we had low feasibility. So feasibility is delivery of the protocol with high integrity and the ability to overcome obstacles. So we had obstacles including logistical concerns, keeping up attendance and maintaining engagement. So even though they had high acceptability, the method, the intervention, the modality that we were using, it wasn't being used properly pretty much because look at how many students dropped out by the end. So we needed to kind of reformulate it. We needed a new model pretty much.
Yeah, and the point of the Gould study there is that most people don't look at this in their program development research. So in the review by Gould et al., they only looked at feasibility, whether people really did it 20% of the time, right? And so it's really important to pay attention to this because we went out and we looked at feasibility and we only got 9 out of 50 to do it, which is not going to lead to a universal level impact.
So I would refer to that article. It's 312 articles that Gould put together, all based on school-based mindfulness, and he found that only 20% of studies even check for feasibility. So that's really important. So these are the core ingredients that you guys want to check for when you're developing intervention. And just the general thoughts of feasibility. So again, our approach is a universal intervention, which may not cater to some of the individualized needs of the students. So we need to find a delivery model that fit a little bit better. And also, this is a problem in intervention research in general. So there's a huge research to practice gap when people are developing interventions. So that's something we need to kind of keep in mind. So our volunteered, unstructured approach wasn't working. So we needed to kind of embed something a little bit different, which my colleagues over here will be speaking more about. So it was an interesting learning process developing an intervention. We did a first pilot study. We tried some things, threw it against the wall. Some of the stuff worked, some of the stuff didn't work. We tried another pilot study, so it was a really, really interesting process developing an intervention actually, and we're still continuously developing it. So it's very interesting. So here's Mr. Safety, who just moved the light socket. So that's how we felt like sometimes. So again, we have a one-size-fits-all approach. So that's universal intervention. So we want to ask ourselves 2 questions. What are the risk factors in our treatment population? In our case, University of Houston college students. And how can our intervention exacerbate these risk factors? For example, some research has found that silent meditation may have negative implications on students with high anxiety, right? Some research has found that. So we want to continuously assess and make sure that whether there are any iatrogenic effects happening in our student base, we embedded resources that they can utilize, counseling services, environmental supports, in case there were any negative effects of our intervention. So that's another really key component that most researchers don't assess for, are these safety effects. And step 3, pass on again.
It's really important for intervention research. And also because, and I'm linking this citation right here, most mindfulness studies don't assess for these things, right? Mindfulness is a very abstract idea. We have some operational definition of what it is, but it's approached very differently, right? So you have one school practicing it one way, you have another place practicing it one way, you have a community center practicing it another way. What is it about mindfulness that's producing change? What is it? Is it the deep breathing? Is it the introspection? Is it the connecting piece? Is it the cognitive piece? Is it the emotional piece? Is it the spiritual piece? Are people even assessing for that? So, getting more into these finer grained details is really important in furthering the research. And I'm linking another video talk that I did on mindfulness in schools and some of the research that we've done in trying to expand in mindfulness in schools, and some other links if you guys are interested in following our lab. We have an Insight Timer channel if you're interested in learning, producing meditations also. So I'm linking all of that below. So I hope this small video taught you guys a little bit about research, and specifically intervention research, and all of the work that goes into it, because it's really important. So if you guys have any questions, comments, leave them in the bottom section, and subscribe, support the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you.